Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group meeting this morning. It is August 26, 2022. I'm very glad you're with us today on this Friday morning. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out if anybody has any success stories to share, we'll get those first. We'll then have everybody put their introductions into the chat window, put in their 30-second introductions. We'll then hear about workshop, job fairs, the practice interview team, the interview success workshop. We'll share the career tip of the week, and then we'll have our main event pretty close to the top of the hour today. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put your questions into the chat box. For those on Facebook, please put your questions into the comment field. We are monitoring that feed, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered by our speaker today, or if you have any questions throughout the presentation. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I guess it was about this time back in 2007 when the guy who was leading the group got a job, said, who wants to take over? I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been leading the group ever since then, since 2007. The group's been around since the late 1990s. Like I said, I took it over in 2007. In 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org. The reason for that is because I found there was a great need in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to try to consolidate all the different groups that are out there and a place to put some really good information about your job search. In 2012, just about 10 years ago, this month, in fact, I launched careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search that you may not know. It is available on Amazon, or if you ever see me in person, I usually have copies with me. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the Dallas Pit Crew. You'll hear more about that in just a couple moments. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news, success stories. Do we have any landings? If you have any good news, please unmute your mic and let us know what it is. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll move on. Okay, what we'd like everybody to do now is, if you would, please open up these. For those on Zoom, open up the chat box. For those on Facebook, just in your comment field, please put down your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, position you're looking for, a couple target companies, and then hit the return key. This way, all your information is together. And what I will do is I will put an email out this afternoon with everybody's contact information. And hopefully you'll look over that list. You'll see companies that people are talking about, and maybe contact at one of those companies. You can help somebody in their job search. Look over that list. I also use what gets loaded into the chat window and into the comment field as my way to update the roster. So if you're counting this as a Texas workforce or as a workforce subject on your chart every week, if you will fill this in, I will make sure I get this counted for everybody. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock, get you started here. You've got plenty of time to do it. So like I said, please put your information in there. That way we can get you on the roster. All right, if you know somebody who's unemployed, newly unemployed for a while, maybe they've forgotten about it, please be sure to share the websites Career DFW and careerusa.org. Two totally free websites. They're there just to help you in your job search. They don't collect any personal information. You don't have to log into anything. It's just there to help you find a job and try to put everything you need to know in one place. One of the things you'll find on the Career DFW calendar for those living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there is be sure to check out the calendars. There's several different calendars. If you look at this is the everything calendar. The pink are job fairs, the blue are networking meetings, meeting in person. Any of the gold events are special workshops that are happening, that, career events, career workshops that you can attend. So please, check out the calendar. There's a lot of great information there for you. All right, it's time to hear from the practice interview team. Mark McDonald is not with us today. His wife is actually running a race in Portland, a 130-mile race. They have 36 hours to complete it. Now, she's not running the whole thing. She's on a team of, I think, 10 people. So they all run like 5 miles and whatever, something like that. So Mark's not with us, but the Dallas Pit Crew, what they offer is a way to practice your interviewing skills. Remember, your resume, your LinkedIn profile is not going to get you a job. All it does is get you a phone call. How well you practice your interview skills, that's what will get you your next job. The Dallas Pit Crew, their interviewings are totally free with the services they provide. Their motto is practice early, practice often, because the more you practice your interviewing skills, the better you're going to be. They say somewhere between 4 to 6 times is the amount of times you really should practice an interview. They will give you a panel interview. So what you do is you send in a resume and a job description. Now, if you're brand new and you haven't really started anything, you don't have anything active right now, just go online, find any job description that you'd be interested in, send that in along with your resume, let them know where you are in the job search. You want to let them know, oh, this is just a random thing, or this is my 3rd interview with the company, because they'll customize it to do that. Let them know what your schedule is 2 to 3 days, business days out, because it takes them a couple days to get the panel organized. And when they do, they will then conduct an interview. It'll take about an hour and 15 minutes total. That includes about 15 to 20 minutes of feedback. So you'll be able to get some real positive feedback on the things you did well and the things you need to improve on. And then, like I say, and you'll get a recording of the process. They do it via Zoom. They're doing it 5 days a week. They can do it in the evening if need be, on Tuesday evenings, I believe. They've done it for somebody in Cambodia. They did an interview for somebody in Slovenia. So wherever you're at, practice your interviewing skills, because you will become better and it will set yourself apart from those people who don't practice. Just send your resume and your job description to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, or you can go to dallaspitcrew.com to get more information about what they do. They also offer a one-way video option. So if you're interested, you can send also a request to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. Let them know you want the one-way interview. It's really sort of odd because there's nobody at the other end. It's you and your camera, and you have a couple minutes to answer the question. With what Mark offers, he has 4 questions. Walt, I think, has multiple. I also have one. So if you're interested in doing it, you can do it as many times as you want to become comfortable with it. But one-way interviewing is becoming more and more popular. Lots of companies are doing it as an initial, do this first, and then we'll decide to call you afterwards. And also, let me back up that you also will get, after you do it, you'll get the links. You can go back and watch yourself. Nobody else will watch it. It's just for you, to help you. And then if you want to do it again, you're more than welcome to do it again. This is Mark's LinkedIn profile. If you want to connect with Mark, please send him a LinkedIn request. He only connects with people who, number 1, are in job search, and number 2, send a personal note. So you've got to do those 2 things. So if you're interested, Mark also teaches or also counsels on one thing: why'd you leave your last job? If you're not sure how to answer that, Mark will spend time with you and get your story ready to go, because that will come up in every interview you ever do. So if you're if you need some help with why'd you leave your last job, if it's not concise, you want it concise. And if there was an issue, it was a problem, you were fired or whatever, talk to Mark. He can help you do that. All right. It's time to hear about the Interview Success Workshop. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning, Jeff. Jeff, that was a great job. I just remembered one thing that Mark also coaches on why you left your last job. Okay. You got 14 out of 15, so I'm going to give you a passing grade. Super announcement for Mark and the pit crew. Well, I'm Walt Glass, and I offer interviewing help as well. Heartily support the pit crew, a nice mock interview panel, good practice sessions. Every time you practice, you get better. So as I was looking around and figuring out what I might do after retiring, after a lot of years in the IT services sales, development, that sort of thing, I decided I would get into the interviewing piece. The reason why is because I really screwed up an interview back in 2000. And so I said, that's not going to happen again. And the long story short, I said, I figured out what people are really buying. They're buying who we are, what we do, and how we help. And so the workshop, which is very informal, covers how do we sell ourselves? How do we sell who we are, what we do, and how we can help? It's a major differentiator. Also, I like to indicate and show you how we can differentiate ourselves in a very positive way. I can tell you that Jeff knows, Mark knows that we hear a lot of very similar answers. There's nothing necessarily wrong with them, but how can we say it a little bit differently and add that selling of I am, I do, I help. So you have to be registered to attend. Just look me up on my LinkedIn page, Walt Glass just look me at Walt Glass on LinkedIn. My Yahoo address is walt_glass@yahoo.com. So that QR code that you see on the screen will start an email to me to say I'd like to register, and I'll send back some dates that I have available so that get you signed up. Now I only do one, maybe two max at a time. We're going to cover fundamentals of selling with the 12 basic categories of questions. So we're talking about strategies, options, structures, opinions on how we answer a question. How we answer a question depends on three factors: the question, the person asking, and where you are in the process. So we have options of how we might go about things. So we cover those elements. The one-way interview practice, we'll let you practice those particular questions as well if you'd like to do that, which I heartily recommend. I've been doing this, 2.5 years now, and I'm still getting used to looking into the camera as I talk. You have to really learn that and pay attention to it, because that's how we connect now when we're online. So I'll be glad to have you join. All you have to do, send me that email. I'll be glad to get you on, and we're going to have some learning without squirming. We all know it's true. We should practice the interview. It'll remove anxiety. It'll keep us from psychiatry, and we can rejoin the working society.
Thank you very much, Walt. Wonderful. It's always great to hear our poem. I can't wait for the book to come out with all your poems in it. All right, it's time to hear the career tip of the week. You can find a new career tip of the week every Saturday afternoon. A new one pops up on the Career DFW, Career USA websites. Rosanna is with us, and she's going to tell us about this week's tip.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Jeff. All right, this week's tip of the week is dated August the 21st, and the title is Over 50 and Looking for a Job? Well, here's what you need to know about age and work. And this article is by Cheryl Winokur Monk. So key points: retirement savings that have taken a big hit in the bear market, combined with inflation, have forced more senior citizen Americans to consider returning to workplace. But according to AARP, the percentage of older workers claiming to have seen or experienced workplace age discrimination is the highest since 2003. The good news: a tight labor market and data showing older workers are less likely to quit is making this labor demographic more in demand. With the bear market hitting retirement portfolios hard, bonds performing as poorly as stocks, and inflation raging, What seemed like a sure retirement income may be more of a pipe dream for more older Americans who had left the workforce or planned to soon retire. The economic situation is sending more retirement age workers back to the labor force. A recent CNBC survey found a majority of retirees would consider returning to work, but finding the right job isn't always easy. Many companies don't offer the flexibility that many older workers want later in life. Age discrimination is another factor, with 78% of older workers claiming to have seen or experienced workplace age discrimination, according to the 2021 data from AARP. That's the highest level since 2003, when AARP began tracking the data. Yet, many companies are increasingly looking for attracting mature workers, and with good reason. For one, the labor market is very tight, and it's been decades, and have been 2 open jobs for every worker in the nation, and firms are struggling to recruit and retain talent. Research from employee scheduling company Homebase suggests that seniors are more engaged, more likely to look forward to work, and more connected to their companies, and less likely to consider quitting. This makes older workers especially attractive in the currently tight labor market. And so here are 4 tips to help older workers find an age-friendly employer. First, identify companies committed to hiring older workers. Start with those that have publicly pledged to level the playing field for older workers. More than 1,000 companies, including Humana, Microsoft, Marriott International, and McDonald's, have signed on to the AARP Employer Pledge Program. Eligible companies can't have had discrimination lawsuits within the past 5 years. They must also agree to recruit across diverse age groups and consider all applications equally, regardless of age. AARP also offers a jobs board to help match experienced candidates with companies who have committed to have diverse employee base. The Age-Friendly Institute also certifies companies that are considered best in class for workers aged 50 and above. Applicants go through an extensive review and certification process, which includes committing to meaningful employment, development opportunities, and competitive pay and benefits for employees 50 plus. The list, last updated in April, includes Aetna, Home Depot, Macy's, Starbucks, and Wells Fargo. Just be aware that these lists can change and don't give you the whole picture, but be sure to do your due diligence on any company you are considering. Second, look for clues in job postings. Older job candidates should look at companies' job ads, which can offer insights into the company's culture and if it's really age inclusive. Older job seekers should also look for language that specifically states that companies don't discriminate based on age. Conversely, seniors should also be wary of companies that use the term digital native in a job description or set a cap on the number of years of experience as a job requirement. Additionally, websites like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Glassdoor can be helpful in finding resources and information about companies' employment practices, including the commitment to older workers. And talking to current and former employees is a good opportunity to gather information. It's worth checking out what tools, if any, the company offers to older workers to help find them jobs. Humana, for example, has a career site with a section on jobs after retirement, where seniors can search for jobs, learn about popular roles for older workers, and get answers to FAQs, including the impact of working, including what the impact of working could be on the Social Security benefits. Workers who are younger than the Social Security Administration considers their full retirement age and earn more than the yearly earnings limit, somewhere between 19,560 in 2022, and they may have their benefits reduced. This means a deduction of $1 from your benefit payments for every $2 you earn above the annual limit for those who are under the full retirement age all year. Number 3, press HR for specific answers on learning benefits. After doing your basic research, be sure to talk to the company's human resources department to get a deeper understanding of the company's policies. Seniors should also ask about kinds of support the company provides to family caregivers and what flexible work options exist in the event an employee needs to take on or increase existing responsibilities. This can include an array of options, including job sharing, compressed work weeks, remote work, hybrid work, and project-based work. It's also important to find out whether the company offers networking groups for seniors, which is a good way for mature workers to connect and benefit from shared experiences. Approaches to team collaboration and learning and developing opportunities are important to know about in advance. And even if someone has been in the workforce for 30 years or longer, it doesn't mean that they have acquired all the wisdom they possibly want. It's equally important to inquire how this learning is accomplished, since many older adults aren't as tech savvy as their younger counterparts. Find out whether the company offers other options beyond online and app-based training. So number 4, know the red flags. Look to see whether older workers are featured on companies' websites and in promotional materials. According to Lewis, it's a bad sign that the organization only chooses to showcase employees in their 20s and 30s. As if a potential employer asks, "How old are you?" when you graduated, and excuse me, and any other questions meant to gauge your age, either in an application or a job interview. Consider that a red flag. They shouldn't be saying things like, "I wasn't even born when you were doing that work or went to college." So just be careful out there. Going back to the article, and I'm glad that it mentioned in the article, I did take a look on AARP's website. And if you go down on the left-hand scroll bar, look for job search. Go ahead and just basically enter a job title and location, and then multiple jobs will show up if they are partnered with those companies that are looking for that job title. And then I had also looked on the Marriott website. There are a lot of jobs on the Marriott website. So basically review this career tip of the week more in detail for the companies that were specifically listed that are working for, or that are looking to hire people who are age 50 and over. But there are a lot of opportunities under these different companies' websites. And then I also saw in the chat that we have a guest recruiter from Thomas Edwards Group. There may be a lot of opportunities there for you guys to take a look at as well. All right, well, thank you for listening to the career tip of the week this week, and enjoy a wonderful weekend.
Rosanna, thank you very, very much. Now, I know nobody on this call is over 50, but maybe you have friends who are over 50 who can tell them about this. But, I don't see anybody out there who looks like they're over 50. So thank you very much. All right, coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we're going to hear the employment view from a retained search consultant. Kurt is with us, and he'll share about what he sees in his crystal ball. Upcoming, I just want to mention next Friday, we will have open forum. It's the first Friday of the month. Man, it's hard to believe it's beginning of September already, but so beginning of September, if you have questions about your job search, just ask us. It's open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about in your career search. So join us next Friday. Well, our speaker today is Kurt Vandermotter. He has a business where he's a retained search consultant, where he hires people for private companies who need to find somebody for that company. So the search is not public. For those of you who've been in our LinkedIn classes, he also teaches once a month. He'll come in and show us what recruiting looks like from the back end through LinkedIn. But I asked Kurt to come today, and I've known him many, many years now. That I asked him to come share what you see in your crystal ball. What do you see happening in the next, 90 days, 120 days? Because he's, if he's not placing people, he's not making any money. So Kurt, thank you very much for being with us today. I will turn it over to you. I'll let you tell everybody more about who you are.
Great. Okay. Sorry about the color here. We're in a move situation, and my office is being taken over right now. So I hope that light and everything is okay. Jeff, can you?
Yeah, we're good. We can see you.
Okay. I am over 50. I'll admit it. But great conversation that you're all having. I can't wait for you all to be back in person. I think that's, the one thing that I would encourage everybody to the point that we can get back in person and start being able to look each other in the eye and shake each other's hands, or at least give us an elbow pump. But so Jeff asked me to kind of talk about where we're at, what's going on in the land of recruiting, and by no means, first and foremost, am I an expert, other than I know what's going on. I talk to employers, I talk to candidates every day, so I talk to other recruiters. So the content that I have is pretty current, in the sense of I think I can answer most of your questions, and if I can't, I'll defer immediately. Jeff is always a good wingman for me. He keeps an eye on the chat and the questions that come up. So the very first thing that I'll tell everybody is that this call is not about Kurt Vandermotter. This is about you all. You're here for a reason today. You're actively looking, or you're considering a move, and you've found Jeff and Career DFW as a resource. And so any questions that you've got that are in line with recruiting or search, or interviewing, that I can add a perspective or provide some insight, I'm here for the next 45 minutes or so to help you all in any way I can. So again, this meeting is not about me. If you've got questions, even if they're not in line with what we're talking about, certainly don't hesitate to throw that into the chat or raise your hand, and we'll get to you as quickly as possible. Just a 30-second, not commercial about Kurt, but who I am and what I've been doing to help you understand the lay of the land, in the sense of my background, is that I spent the first 35 years of my career in corporate America working for companies like Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, AT&T, and then I did some startup technology companies. And it was about 16 years ago that I found myself in a pivot. I had been with a company called Intervoice in Dallas, and my boss called me on the 4th of July and told me that my job had been eliminated, and that I could come back and negotiate my severance package with HR. So that's when I pivoted, and I made one phone call to a friend of mine that was in recruiting and asked him if I could just be on the bench. And he told me at that point, he and I had worked together at 7-Up for a long time. And he said, Kurt, you would just make an amazing recruiter. Why don't you come to Galena, Illinois, and take over my business? Short story, as I couldn't, because my son was a senior in high school. My daughter was a freshman in high school, and I just couldn't leave and pick up everybody to go up to Galena, town of 1,000 in the summer and about 500, or 2,000 in the summer and about 500 in the winter. And I had commuted to Chicago for 4 years. So I decided I couldn't do that, but I came back to Dallas and basically started my own business. And since then, I work with companies to fill what's considered hard to fill jobs. I'm a retained search executive. And the first thing that I want to do is just share with everybody on the call what the recruiting landscape looks like, and so that you can have better conversations with recruiters. And I think that this is really, really important, because some of you don't know the difference. And I think that it will improve your dialogue and your ability to ask better questions. So quickly, the landscape in recruiting is this. There are internal recruiters, and these are the people that work for the company. As an example, when I was at AT&T, they probably had 400 or 500 recruiters throughout the company that were working on retail. They were working on cell tower recruitment. They were working on engineers. They were working with call centers. So a lot of recruiters internally filling multiple jobs. And that's pretty standard in your larger companies. But when you get into a $50 million company that's got 100 employees, you've got an HR executive that's really responsible for doing recruiting, and they don't necessarily have a recruiting team. So when a company decides that their internal team can't fill that job, either their HR executive or somebody in the recruiting organization, then they go externally. And externally, they would look at two types of firms. They'll look at a contingent firm, and contingent recruiting firms, they get hired by companies, and a company can hire multiple contingent firms. They might be looking for a director of sales. And so the VP of sales goes out and he builds a relationship with 2 or 3 contingent firms, and he gives them the ability to work on that search. There's no money exchange. There's a contract that basically says that if I bring you the candidate that you hire, you will pay me a commission, or you will pay me not a retainer, but you'll pay me a commission based on that salary and anything else that's negotiated. So the bottom line is, those people in that industry and in the recruiting industry, if they're contingent, then there could be multiple recruiters working on a job that you're seeking. And so recruiters that work in this particular part of our industry, they don't typically spend a lot of time with candidates, because remember, they don't get paid unless they present the candidate that gets hired. So they are constantly presenting candidates in hopes that their candidate will be the one that sticks. Okay, so that is contingent, and then there's retained, and that's what I do. And when a company uses a retained search executive, then we are retained, we are paid a retainer up front, and we're exclusive. There's nobody else working on the search. Internal recruiters aren't working on the search if it's a large company. HR is not working on the search if it's a small company. My organization or the retained search company is the only one that's working on filling that role. And so in that particular case, we spend a lot more time with candidates. We get to know our clients a lot better, because we're really there to help solve problems. We're not there just to fill a gap or to put a square peg into a round hole. Let's back up. And how does that conversation and what does that mean to you as a candidate? Let me give you some examples of questions that you might ask as you start engaging with recruiters. You're driving down 75 and your phone rings, and it's a recruiter, and they say, "Hello, Jack. This is Kurt, and I am a recruiter, and I'm looking to fill a job. You seem to have the background that I'm looking for. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" You've picked up the phone, so now you're engaged while you're driving. So my encouragement then is to say, either, "Jack, that's great. I'm really excited that you called. I'm on the highway right now. Can I exit and call you back in 3 minutes when I find a parking spot that's quiet and I can have a better conversation with you?" Or if you want to continue the drive, then that's fine. If you're on speaker, then the first question you might ask is, "Well, great, Jack, can you give me a little bit of an overview of who you are and the company you work for, and maybe a little more detail about what kind of position you're trying to fill?" So my recommendation is not to literally vomit on that recruiter because you've got a phone call that you haven't had in 2 months or a month or 3 days, and you just want to tell them all about who you are. Take a deep breath and try to figure out what kind of recruiter this is. Is it an internal recruiter? They're working for the hiring manager. Their questions are going to be not less, but are going to be really targeted towards a specific job description. And if you haven't looked at the job description yet, then you may be giving bad information to that recruiter about what your capabilities are, because you're not very targeted in your communications. If it's a contingent recruiter, they're going to be in a hurry because they're trying to get your resume and get your resume submitted if they think that you're a fit. So they may have 3 or 4 quick questions. And a retained search executive, absolutely, if they've gotten you on the phone, there is nothing wrong with saying, they'd be honored and happy to have a 30-minute conversation with you in a place where you're quiet and you can direct your attention to that call. So all of them, you want to make sure you're directing your attention and your focus, but that's a lay of the land of the kind of recruiters that are going to be calling you typically. to have conversations. So that's a lay of the land, a little bit more than I probably expected, but hopefully that helps people understand who recruiters are, what kind of recruiters they are, and what the work that they do. Jeff, do we have any questions at this point?
Sorry, not yet.
Okay, so let's continue. So what's going on today? My goodness, I can't even begin to tell you. Every day is different, Jeff, and everybody on the call. It's more than the wild, wild west. I'll tell you that I don't know how to read these numbers, because we are at supposedly record low unemployment. But we are in what we, at least 6 months ago, a year ago, we were in this thing called the Great Resignation. And so people were actively leaving jobs immediately, and there was a lot of turnover. But we don't seem to be in that Great Resignation anymore. And as an example, I started doing some exploration for an accounting firm in Dallas that is looking to bring in a number of accountants over the next 6 months, tax and audit predominantly. And LinkedIn is a place that I sometimes go to post those roles. And so I haven't started the searches, but just to see what the network looked like, I threw a post out there. And for both of those jobs, just to give you an idea, I have gotten one application. One. Okay. So what does that say? It's an indication. Maybe I wrote a bad ad. Maybe it's not enticing enough. But normally when I start posting jobs in markets, it's not uncommon for me to start to get 30, 40, 50, 60 people that are inquiring about that role. So that's an indication. It concerns me, but I don't have any analytics to back it up. For the first half of the year as a recruiter, I was busier than I've ever been. I did more business in the first half of the year than I've done in any 1 year. And I'm not telling you that in a braggadocious way. I'm just telling you that it was busy. There were times I think I did 17 searches in the first half of the year. And there were times that I had 7 or 8 searches going on at one time. So I was really, really busy. And then we got to June and July and it dived. I mean, I'm working on a search in Tucson, Arizona right now. And I just yesterday, after almost 60 days of silence, I've had conversations with 2 new clients in the last 24 hours. Does that mean it's going to pick up again? I don't know. I had lunch a couple of weeks ago with a couple of the recruiters that do a lot of sales and marketing stuff. Their business was very strong in the first half of the year. It has also died. Their conversations with other recruiters was similar, that things had slowed down. So prior to the calls that I've gotten in the last 4 days, my conversations with candidates has been pretty simple. And that is that we are in a recession. I don't think anybody would argue that. I don't know if we're at the end of the recession or the beginning. I think that there is a lot of questions. I hate to bring politics into it, but I think there are a lot of questions about what's going to happen in November. What does that do? That's not candidate information. That, candidates are actively looking for jobs. That has no effect on that. But companies are assessing, where do they need to be? What do they need to do? Are they going to continue to lay off, or are they going to start hiring because they see light that they hadn't seen for the last few years? Again, I don't know what that means. I'm not bringing any Democratic, Republican, or any other aspect into it. I'm just saying that companies are concerned, and we've seen that in the stock market. I don't need to give you any other data. So that's a little bit about what's going on today. Now, what would I do, or what advice would I give you as a candidate? I'd give you the same advice that I would give you as I talk to candidates. I use a holiday speech. Many times candidates come to me during Thanksgiving, right before the Thanksgiving holiday, and they tell me that, this is a good time. I'm going to take the next 6 weeks off. Companies don't hire during this period. And it's a good time for me just to spend time with the family, enjoy the holidays, and I'll pick it up after the first of the year. And I think that that's the worst thing that a candidate can do. And that's the same advice that I'd give you today. Do not stop your search. Companies are hiring. There are openings. They may not be advertised. They may be, you might have to work harder to uncover those opportunities. They may not be posted, but it's conversations that you have with executives that you understand or learn that there might be an opportunity. So don't stop, continue what you're doing. Not to say that you don't listen to the news. I don't listen to a lot of news, but the bottom line is there is hiring going on. It may not be as rampant as it was in January and February, but it's going to pick up again, and there is going to be a change, and we will, it'll be positive for everybody. So, what does the next 6 months look like? If I were a candidate, I'd continue to do everything I was doing. I'd accelerate my conversations. I'd focus on my strengths, and I'd go to companies and help them solve problems. And that's the biggest question that you as a candidate need to try to learn as you're talking to companies, is try to figure out what is the biggest problem they're trying to solve, and how can you build a bridge between what you've done in your past into that opportunity. What have you done? Who have you met with? What tools did you bring to the table to help that company solve problems that are similar to the organization that you're interviewing with? And that is the antithesis of the tip. Okay. When I'm working with companies, I talk to them about what are the biggest problems that you're trying to solve, so I can go find candidates. But as you start interviewing, you need to bring those issues to the front, because we need to get candidates talking about what they've done and how they've done it in other organizations. I'm going to shut up for a minute, Jeff. I see some chat going on. So what kind of questions do we have out there?
All right, Rusty asked, if we have previously been in contact with a hiring company's talent acquisition team via LinkedIn or email, does this present a conflict if we're contacted by an outside recruiter for a position within the company?
That is a great question. And who was it? Anthony, you said?
No, it's Rusty who asked that.
Rusty, that is a great question, Rusty. And probably one that every situation is going to be different. Okay, now I'm not going to be able to give everybody a clear. I'm going to give you a couple of choices here, Rusty. Okay, I think that if I had been contacted by the company, and I had interviewed for the role, maybe I hadn't even interviewed. Maybe it happened just simultaneously. And a recruiter calls me and says, I've got this opportunity for a vice president of sales and marketing at company XYZ. And you've interviewed for that role. It is your obligation to tell that recruiter that you know that organization and that you've been through the interview process. You might not have gotten a clear closure, Rusty. So it may be still unclosed, and you can tell the recruiter that, gosh, I interviewed with 2 people and then they went silent on me. As far as I knew, the job was closed and they weren't going to fill it. So you can be transparent like that, but I wouldn't give a lot of data. I wouldn't share with them, when the interviews went great, or I can't, I don't know that I can see myself working for them, or that hiring manager doesn't know how to interview. I would just give them a few immediate facts. Now, on the other side of the coin, what happens if you've talked to a recruiter and a company calls you? In that particular case, I would go silent. I don't know that you have to determine or present yourself that you've talked to a recruiter about this role, because they didn't present you. Okay, they didn't take you forward, Rusty. That company doesn't know you, because if they did, they wouldn't have reached out to you. If a recruiter, in my case, I provide my clients with lists of all the candidates that I've talked to, and I own that relationship with the candidate for a year in my agreement. Meaning that if they decide to hire somebody that I have talked to and presented over a course of a year, that my fee structure sticks. And so sometimes companies go out and they start a search process, they get that list, and then they decide 6 months later that they want to engage with Rusty. And that's perfectly fine, but don't complicate it by going into a bunch of detail about what you already know. If you're talking to the company and their hiring manager wants to talk to you, then accelerate your conversation. Does that make sense? Kind of a double side of I'm giving you two sides of it. But I think the key is when you're talking to a recruiter, if you have had conversations and been through the interview process, that probably happened before they engaged with this recruiter, and the company may not have given them a list of candidates that they've talked to previously. And so you want to be honest with the recruiter and don't waste their time, because it's not going to work out well for you at the end, in the sense that you don't tell them that you had the conversation, you go through the process, they go in and they say, we want you to meet Rusty. And Rusty's already been through the interview, and they say, well, didn't Rusty tell you that he's already been in here and it wasn't a match? And then the recruiter comes back and says, dude, what's going on? We just spent, 8 hours together over the last week. And why didn't you tell me that you were interviewing with that company? So that's why you just want to be honest and transparent with the recruiters. On the other side, again, it's a little bit trickier.
Rusty, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, so I think part of my strategy is I've had target companies. I've been reaching out to make contact with people in those target companies, including talent acquisition managers. And what I wanted to confirm is if I've just done that very informally, if that's going to hurt me at all.
No.
I think the answer is no.
No.
Okay.
I mean, Rusty, you're doing what I would recommend. And those of you that just listen to what Rusty said, I think is what I heard he's doing. And this is very, very, very good, is that Rusty, and I don't know Rusty, we've met, but I don't know Rusty well, so I'm not telling his secrets. But what Rusty's doing is he is identifying target companies that he would like to work for based on his experience, his knowledge, and his research. And when he comes up with those target companies, they could be because he was in a meeting like this and somebody said, did you know that Cadbury's hiring or Krug is hiring? And so he puts that down as a company that's on his target list. And then he goes into his network and he's starting to identify key people that work for that company that he can engage and have conversations with. It's not necessarily about a specific a job that they've got open, but he's building relationships with these people so that they're on his radar. They're on his radar, meaning that the hiring manager gets to know Rusty and they know that Rusty's got these skills in the event that there's an option or an opportunity within that organization on that executive's team. Is that accurate, Rusty?
That is perfect.
Okay. So all of you that aren't doing that today, I encourage you to either get with Rusty and figure out how he's doing that and what are all the blocking and tackling. We can talk about a little bit more of that here if you all want to, but this is where the rubber meets the road. Rusty is a CPG marketing leader, so he knows how to sell. If you are not a salesperson, if you're not a marketing person and you're in HR, you're in finance, you're in accounting, then I encourage you to align yourself with an accountability partner that is a salesperson, is a marketing person that can teach you how to sell. When I was in college, Jeff's heard this story many a time, but when I was in college, a professor handed me his Bic pen and he said, sell me the pen. So I grabbed the pen and I say, it looks nice, it's slender, it's clean, it fits in my pocket, it doesn't seem to bleed. It's got a nice look to it. It's a pen that I would give to a friend of mine or a business person. And I really like the way it writes. It's clean and it doesn't smear. Well, guess what? Everybody on this call, Carol, Steve, Lily, you are the Bic pen now, okay? You have to learn how to sell yourself. And so if you don't feel comfortable doing that, and you don't know how to present yourself and present your skill sets and your past accomplishments, then find somebody in this group or an accountability partner that can help coach and mentor and give you honest feedback on how to do that. But back to what Rusty's doing is he is out selling and communicating and building bridges and not necessarily going after JOBs, but he's going after key people in organizations that he wants to work for. And he's telling his case about what he's done. And that door opens so many opportunities because Rusty knows this because he's not doing this just because he thought it was a good idea. He's been coached very well by somebody, but so many times we don't know what we don't know. So he has a call with Jack at Krewig, and Jack is leaving Krewig and he's going over to Teasdale. And he's going to build a team, and Rusty's got the skills, but he doesn't have the green light to hire Rusty yet. But in the back of his mind, he's going, when I accept this job, Rusty's going to be one of the first people I call because I can't take everybody from Krewig, and there's only a few people I'd want to take with me. And I know that the Teasdale team is not where it needs to be, and I'm going to have to add to it. So Rusty's resume is right with me as I move over to that next company. Keep the blinders off. Keep the blinders off. When do we have to turn down jobs? When we get job offers, but not before that. If you turn down jobs before you get written job offers, you are potentially missing out on some great opportunities. Another quick story happens all the time. I'll send a candidate into a company for an interview for a director of marketing. And the CEO will call me 2 hours later and say, we're going to make Lily an offer for the vice president of da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I didn't even know you had that job open. And he says, well, I didn't either. We've been talking about it in the executive meetings, but Lily is perfect for this job. So we're going to bring her in. Keep looking for that director because we need that person too. But we're going to take Lily and put her in this box. So if Lily hadn't taken the opportunity to go in for that director interview, she wouldn't have gotten the vice president interview, right? She didn't want to be a director. She wanted to be a vice president. She got it because she just kept her cool, kept the blinders off, went through the interview process because she didn't have to turn down job offers until she got job offers. Next question.
Okay, Lisa asked, from a recruiter's perspective, is the open to work tag on LinkedIn a good thing or not?
Big,
Nope.
huge. Go do it. Put it out there. If you are actively looking for a job, if I pull up, and here's why, come to one of my meetings when we do the LinkedIn recruiter meetings, or go look at one of my previous ones. But I use that filter often, and here's where I use it most often. I'm going to start a search. I'm going to be, and I'm throwing this out there. This is reality. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm going to start a search in Kansas City for 4 attorneys. Okay. So if any of you have contacts with people in Kansas City, ideally, these people are going to be probably 2 years out of law school because it's a growing organization and they like to bring people in young and early and kind of learn the way they do business. But I'm going to hire 4 people in Kansas City in the next 3 months. Okay. So when I go in and start that search, and I did it yesterday just to see what the talent pipeline might look like in Kansas City as I have conversations with the company, the talent pipeline in LinkedIn for that search is about 300 people. Well, I can't look at 300 people in an hour, and I want to go talk to the CEO of this company in the next 45 minutes. So then I'll go in and I'll click on candidates that are open to new opportunities, because those are the people that are going to communicate more likely with me going forward. If they may have even put their contact information in LinkedIn. Huge recommendation to everybody on this call. If your contact information is not in your summary section of LinkedIn, you are giving up on all kinds of opportunities. As I go through that database and I look at 300 people and I click on a candidate and they open to work and they've given me their information in their summary, their email or phone number, you go to the top of the class because I can reach and talk to you immediately. Okay. When I have to go through LinkedIn and send you an in-mail, did you know that only about 8% of the people that use LinkedIn reply to in-mails? 8%. It's awful. I have a pretty good rate. I'm in the 20s of people, 20% that reply back to me. But imagine if I sent out 100 messages, only 18, 19, 20 reply back to me. So Lisa, how do I find you? Put that wreath around your head. Click the box that you're open to new opportunities. Reply to every message that everybody sends you. It can just be, okay, thanks, not interested. You don't have to send a 10-paragraph reply. And then make sure that everybody on this call, make sure that your contact information is in the summary section. So when recruiters do click on your profile, they don't have to send you an email. They can pick up the phone and call you directly.
So Lisa continued on in her question saying most of the executive search recruiters that she's spoken to or worked with in the past have always said they are always looking for people who are working or people who are not looking for a new job. Yeah,
that's old school, guys. If I only talk to people that were actively working, I'd never complete a search, because that's just, it's not true. Especially during this COVID, there are so many people that are out of work that, you know, so I'm working with this company in Tucson. I'm looking for a controller. It's a tough search because the salary on it's really low. And I've got a candidate that we're talking to. The reason that he's actively looking is because the company he was working for, he was working 7 days a week, and some days he was working 10, 11 hours a day. And that's just unacceptable. He took a Friday off. Okay. He took a Friday off for doctor's appointments and to take an interview. And somehow somebody in HR found out that he was going on an interview and they fired him the next day. Okay. So if I were to tell my client that this candidate's not a good candidate, that he's not capable of doing the work, he checks all the boxes. He's worked in retail. He's worked in family-owned businesses. The glory of this is that the guy's ecstatic about having a 40-hour-a-week job where he can be with his family on the weekends that he's never been able to have for the last year. So yeah, different circumstances today than we've ever had before.
All right, Lily says, and she was really not a question, but says the headline on our LinkedIn profile seems to be very important for getting the attention of recruiters, including the order in which we list our titles and skills. Yes, no, good, bad.
Lily, I don't know that that's really, you know, that could be, again, you know, the way that LinkedIn and we search, what I would tell you is you're hitting on an area that is really important, and that's called keywords. So, you know, I'm not an activist of saying that when I look at your header and it's got Lily, that you say actively looking for a new career and put your phone number up there. Okay. But I think those keywords and what you do help point people in the direction of your capabilities. So if you are a salesperson and your header says you're a marketing person and you're applying for sales roles, there could be a conflict there. There could be a question where a recruiter says, I looked at your profile and you really look more like a salesperson than you do a marketing person, or vice versa. So, you know, I think that, you know, as a candidate, we want to try to be everything to everybody, and you can't. But you can use keywords to help differentiate you and to help it make it easier for recruiters to find you, because that is how we look for candidates. We use keywords and we build booleans, and we throw those into LinkedIn, we throw them into Google, we throw them into other search engines to try to find candidates that have or are using those keywords. And that is really what I would focus on.
So it does not matter where in that headline the keyword is placed then, from what you're saying.
Right.
Because someone told me the other day, for the positions I'm now targeting, I'm leveraging a law degree that I happen to have, which is really going to be a big deal. And so this person said, start the headline with your law degree and then say what position. So that's kind of what I'm trying to bounce off you too.
Absolutely. So you can use the law acronym and easily put that into, if you are an operations executive, but you have a law degree and that law degree is a differentiator, then put both in there, that you are, you know, a operations expert or VP of operations or director of operations, whatever it might be. And I'm making this up, Lily, and then put the acronym for your legal degree. Absolutely. That will pick up and you will accelerate conversations.
So right at the beginning of the, close to the beginning, at least, of the headline. Not
That's
at
right.
the end. Okay, I did go ahead and modify it based on that advice, but wanted to run it by you too. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
Lily also makes a comment in the chat window. In our LinkedIn profile, I believe we can let recruiters know that we're looking without having to have the open to work banner around our picture. Let me answer this though. The reason you don't want to do that is because if you're open to work, now, if you're working for a company and you don't want them to know that you're letting recruiters know, that's fine. But in the case of, in the case of like Thomas Edwards, we had Tracy was on from Thomas Edwards a little bit earlier. They have 30 plus recruiters. None of them pay for the recruiting package. So they're searching for you, not using the recruiting package that Kurt will show us next Tuesday when he does his LinkedIn presentation. So they only know you're open to work if you happen to say open to work or you have the banner on. And what about your contacts, people who you know personally, who may see your profile and go, oh, Lily, I didn't know you were open to looking for a new opportunity. So if you're open to work, there's nothing wrong with putting that banner on.
That's right.
It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, I know 10, 15, 20 years ago, I remember being laid off and people are like, oh, I don't want to get close to you because you were laid off. I may get the layoff, bug or whatever from you. Nowadays, listen, everybody's been laid off. If they haven't been laid off, they're about to be laid off. And,
I guess the recruiters who are biased against people who aren't currently working will still have that bias, even if they don't see that banner and then find in my profile that I'm really not working.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I'm an advocate of letting people know because again, you move to the head of the class. If you're actively looking for a new opportunity, then you're more likely to reply to me. You may not be a candidate for this role. It may be for another role, but the conversation that we're going to have is going to be beneficial to me as a recruiter, at least, because I'm going to get compensation information. I'm going to get, some of the skills and some of the things that you've done. I'm going to get your tenure. I'm going to understand what you're actually looking for. And again, you may not be the right fit, but I may be working on something else for a different company that I'd want to put you in that funnel to. So I'm sure there's two ways to argue this, but as a recruiter, I'm telling you that it's not a negative for me. And I don't think it is for most of the recruiters that I work for, because the world of hiring is so different than it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Right.
To make that change.
Okay, Lenora asked, do you have to use the green open to work circle, or is hashtag open to work in the about section and turning on open to work button enough?
Again, what Jeff said is so true. So let me just give everybody just a real brief education on LinkedIn, okay, and Recruiter, because that for some of you may be a complete new subject. So LinkedIn is a product that's been there for a number of years. The history of this is that there's a company out there called Korn Ferry, and some of you know Korn Ferry. They're a recruiting firm. And they went to LinkedIn a long time ago and they said, you know what? Our database is outdated every day. We want to work with you to develop a product that we can use, that we can put our candidates into, but we can search for other candidates. And LinkedIn seems to be that platform. So they developed a product called LinkedIn Recruiter. So you've got this LinkedIn. Here's the base, the foundation of LinkedIn. And what they did is they built a separate set of APIs that's called LinkedIn Recruiter that's above LinkedIn. and it's got hooks that go into LinkedIn. So the LinkedIn Recruiter is a product. The database is LinkedIn. But when I am looking for you as a candidate and I'm using the product LinkedIn Recruiter, and I pay a lot of money to use that product every year, and I've got a 3-year agreement with them that's extensive, and I'm just a single seat guy, I'm a single shingle, okay? Then when I'm using LinkedIn Recruiter, you as a candidate cannot see me anywhere. I don't show up. And people question me all the time and they say, well, wait a minute, no, that's not true because I see, recruiters, but I can't see your name. No, I am not anywhere. And they'll keep it that way forever because I look at, as I told you, some days I can look at 200 profiles. If I had 200 people that were calling me and texting me, emailing me and saying, hey, I saw you looked at my profile, I'd never get anything done. Okay. So it will be that way forever, as long as I can see at least. But the bottom line is there are other recruiters, as Jeff just identified, that work for companies that don't use LinkedIn Recruiter. Okay. And so in LinkedIn Recruiter, you can tell that you can not put the green arrow on there and tell recruiters that you're open to new opportunities. But then when I go to look for candidates with new opportunities, I see both. Some have open to work and they have the green arrow and others don't. But if I didn't have that product and I was working for a company, all I'd be able to search for open to new opportunities is by looking at the wreath around your head. So I encourage candidates, if you're actively looking, if you're working for a company today and you're a passive candidate, then you probably don't want to tell the world that you're looking. But if you're unemployed, you're collecting unemployed, you're actively looking for a job, why not tell everybody? A friend of yours may click on your profile and call you and say, Lily, I had no idea that you were looking for a new opportunity. Gosh, when we worked together over at XYZ, you did some amazing things. I'm over at XYZ now, and we need a person like you. I just didn't know that you were actively looking. So highly encourage you to reconsider putting that wreath around your head.
Okay, Robert asked, is being open to relocation the best way to locate new opportunities in this day and age? Do recruiters prefer a reload candidate over those looking to stay in a particular market area?
Good question. Anytime we have to relocate a candidate, it adds a lot of hair to the ball. Okay, we don't know if there's family. We don't know, if they own a house. There's just a lot of hair on it. So, yeah, relocating people is difficult. But if you have selected a couple of markets or a market that you want to move to, typically we see this happening in California. People wanting to be in Texas. So they'll actually change their LinkedIn profile to reflect that they live in Texas. But telling candidate, but open to relocate is good. There's times, and you may have the situation where you don't need help with relocation. You want to be close to your family in a particular city, and so you can make that real simple. But there's a lot of candidates out there, and I was one of them for a long time. I came out of the Pepsi-Cola system, and they relocated me every year, sometimes twice a year. And it was expensive. The moving van would show up. They'd send somebody in to pack me. Sometimes I wasn't even at home. They'd pack me. They'd take the dishes out of the dishwasher. They'd take the dirty clothes out of the washing machine. They'd pick up my laundry. They'd do everything they could to get me moved, and then they'd unpack me when they got me to the new place. Well, those days are gone. Companies don't have those kinds of relocation packages anymore. So just a word of caution. But if you're actively looking in this particular city, then I encourage you to really focus in that market.
Okay. Lenora says, can you talk about current background checks, what they're looking for, what past employees reveal, what other information do they get by means, and what are those secrets that they maybe get from further information?
Yep. So background checks are done because companies want to know whether or not you've got, in a case where, for instance, I just completed 2 CFO searches for family offices. and they're multi-million, billion-dollar family offices. And so we want to make sure that the candidate that we're bringing in doesn't have a felony. They don't have a history of stealing from a company or doing something that's illegal. They may want to look into your credit background and make sure that you don't have any liens against properties or anything like that. So that's the basic premise of it. But then companies want to do background checks just to also understand you as a candidate in the sense of, are there any hidden, or is there anything hidden that would prevent you from being successful in their organization? If you want to sit on a board of the YMCA, you've got to do a background check to make sure that you don't have any child abduction or child molestation issues, right? So those are the typical things that they're looking for, but they may go deeper depending on the role that you're accepting and if you're going into a company and you're going to have complete access to this company's bank account and, personal information about people and the executives and how much they make and all that, they're going to want to make sure that you don't have a criminal record of any sort that you would bring into their organization and potentially be a bad employee. So that's what they're typically most looking for. That's it.
Yeah, I think the higher up you are, the more extensive the background check will be.
That's right.
We had a speaker back on February 11th, all about background checks. So if you want to go back to the Career USA YouTube channel, go to the North Dallas playlist, go back to February 11th this year, you'll see a presentation on all about background checks.
Good, great call, Jeff.
Okay, Glenn asked, is looking for more than 6 months considered a deterrent to being considered for an otherwise viable candidate?
Now, people pivot and they take a year off, they take 2 years off. It doesn't make it any easier as you get longer in that cycle, but it's not like you're not going to work every day and you're not actively looking and you're not actively having conversations. So I encourage you to keep your saw sharp. If you have the opportunity, there's continuing education classes that you can take to maintain your area of expertise, and you can learn. If you're marketing, you might sit down on social media pods and just to keep your saw sharp. But other than that, no, 6 months isn't. Now a candidate that has been out for 4 years, they may have again pivoted. They may have decided that they had elderly parents they needed to go take care of, and they did that for 2 or 3 years. And so there can be explanations behind everything. So I coach my companies to not throw the baby away with the bathwater, and let's find out what really is going on. There was some conversation earlier about, the questions that recruiters can ask and so forth about your background, your personal, if you haven't worked in the last 4 years, then be prepared to tell them what you've done, and don't look at telling them that you've got elderly parents that you needed to go take care of is, that they're going to be able to determine how old you are or whether you have gray hair or not. I mean, guys, all that's going to come out at some point. So don't try to hide anything. Just be transparent.
Okay. Lenora also asked, what do you, when they do, what do they ask past employers in background checks? Do they try to secretly dig deeper beyond verifying title and years of employment?
Well, when I call and do reference checks, what I'm just trying to find is, first and foremost, there's not a candidate out there that I know of that's going to give me a reference. It's a bad reference. Okay. I don't think I need to give this presentation, but, before you give references to a company, you ought to call every one of those references and say, hey, I'm giving your name to Kurt Vandermotter. He's a recruiter, and the job that I'm interviewing for is a director of marketing for Kruig. And the top things that I'm trying to, top two things that I'm trying to solve for this company are this and this. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to them. If you wouldn't mind, just send me a quick text after you got in the call so I know that they've completed that reference. So that's a call you ought to make with every reference every time. Don't just do it at the beginning of your search. Can you be a reference for me? And 5 months later, give the name to somebody, because you want that candidate, you want the person that we're calling, not necessarily to say, hey, Jeff called me and told me all about this, but you just want the person to be ready for the call. Okay. But then what are we looking for? You know, again, I know when I'm calling these references that I'm not going to get somebody that's going to probably give me a bad reference. So I'm asking about, so when you worked with Glenn, was there a time that you worked on a project together, and what was that like? Was Glenn easy to work with? He's going to have to lead groups in diverse parts of the organization. What's Glenn's communication style like? And I want that person to say, you know, just open up about something that I can take a story back to my client that says, you know, I think Glenn checks the boxes. He's worked with these kinds of people in the past, and he can accomplish the goals that we want him to accomplish. That's what we're typically looking for. We're not asking for, hey, you know, when you work with Glenn, you know, what bar did you guys go to? How often did you go to that bar? You know, did you guys play golf twice a week or 4 days a week? I mean, I'm not asking those kinds of questions. If there's something to be told and this person wants to rat somebody out, they'll tell me, but typically you're not going to give me that guy as a reference anyway. So you're good to go. That's what we're looking for, is just stories that we can take back to our client to share with them that, in fact, we now have references that confirm that Glenn has these capabilities.
And she goes one step further. She understands, personal references are going to be fine, but third-party companies like Good Hire, they only contact HR. Most large companies, they have a rule. They'll say, yes, these were the employment dates, and maybe this is what their final salary was. But that's all they're going to say, because a good HR department doesn't want to be held liable for slandering anybody.
Right. Well, most companies, Jeff, have a rule that they're not to give out references. I mean, it's very common that if an employer, back in my days and when I was at Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, AT&T, we were encouraged to not give references, that references should go through HR. And all HR can legally give you information about was, yes, the employer, he was an employee here from this date to this date. And that's all they can really give you. They're not there to give you any other details. So that's why when we as recruiters ask for references, we want to try to talk to people that you've worked for, and we hope that they haven't gotten that pitch. I've been doing this for 16 years. I've checked references on hundreds and hundreds of candidates, and I've not once been told, you got to call HR.
Okay. All right. We only have a few more minutes. I want to be, your time's very valuable. Could you briefly just talk about your prayer letter? I think it's a great networking tool. And I think people here could really benefit from it. In fact, I'll put a link. I've actually typed it up for you. I'll put it in the chat window so everybody can have it in writing. But I think if they hear it from you, I think it'll be a real good benefit.
Got it. So the only regret that I've got, and Jeff knows this as well, is that I wish that I had started collecting the analytics on this 15 years ago when I started telling people that this is a good way to market yourself. But the bottom line is, you all have gotten the prayer letter in the past. It says, you get it from somebody, it says, read this prayer 10 times in the next 10 minutes and send it to 10 people or you're going to die and go to hell. And so in the job search world, what I want you to do is I often encourage candidates to activate their network, okay? And by that, I mean that I want you to literally make a list and create an Excel spreadsheet of everybody that you've worked for and worked with, people you met on airplanes, people you called on, people that called on you. And this is your network. Your network is your net worth, okay? So I want you to literally make an Excel spreadsheet of all these people, pull some of them out of LinkedIn, go through business cards. In the Excel spreadsheet is name, phone number, email address, and then any notes that you want to keep. So when you activate your network, you're going to make a call to everybody. You're going to call these people literally one by one. And the call is going to sound something like this. Hey, Larry, I really enjoyed working with you when we were at Dr. Pepper. I'm actively looking for a new opportunity, and just wanted you to know that I'm looking. If anything comes across your desk that you see would be a good fit, I'd really appreciate if you'd send it my way. Some of the target companies that I'm looking at this month include, and you might give them a couple companies, but you're not sending them a resume. You're just letting them know that you're actively looking and creating a conversation. Now, many times this is going to be a voicemail. So the voicemail, you're going to want to write it out. You're going to want to script it and practice it so that it just comes off your tongue. We want to try to leave fewer voicemails. So we might leave a voicemail. Hey, Larry, I'm trying to get a hold of you. If you've got 8 minutes, 6 minutes in the next week, I'd love to talk to you. Give me a shout. Here's my phone number. When we get them on the phone, we also want to validate. We know we got the right phone number because we're talking to them, right? We want to make sure we got the right email address. So validate that to make sure your records are correct. After you've activated your network in 30 days, this should take you about 30 days, whether you've got 100 or 300 or 500, you should try to accomplish this in 30 days. After you've accomplished that, then we go to the prayer letter. And now you can continue to add people. So you might not remember Anthony's name in the first month, and you go in month 3 and you put in Anthony, you had a phone call with him and you add him to your list. But you go and you grab all those email addresses and you put them into a BCC. There doesn't have to be a 2, and there doesn't have to be a CC. They all go into a BCC. And every one of these people now get this email that says, great people, no great people, or whatever header you want to use. And the body of it, it says, and Jeff has got this online, great people, no great people. In the body, I just want to give you an update. I continue to actively look for new opportunities. Some of the target companies that I'm looking at this month include, and you give them those 3 new companies. We don't tell people what we do. We give them target companies, okay? They know what you do because they know you. Some of the target companies that I'm looking at this month include, you give them 3 companies. If you know anybody in these companies or companies like these, I'd greatly appreciate an introduction. Feel free to forward this note on to anybody in your network. Call with any questions, and I'll be back in touch in 30 days. Have a tremendous day. And if there's anything that I can do for you or anybody in your network, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be available. So that marketing, that is your prayer letter. That is your marketing newsletter. You can alter that every month, but the point is it's short, it's clean, it's concise. You don't attach a resume. We want resumes to be thought starters, and we want it to be conversation. So never just blanketly send your resume out. We always want to have the opportunity to customize that for a particular role. So that's why we don't just send it out to 200 people. We want to send that out only when people ask for it and we know what they're going to use it for. Okay. So that's the prayer letter. Every month you can modify it a little bit and put some new words in and add a little bit more. But once you've activated your network and you've got that list developed, every month this should only take you 8 to 10 minutes to send that note out. When does your network start working for you? When you start using the prayer letter? It takes 30 days, 60 days, but I guarantee you in 90 days, you will get phone calls. You'll start having conversations with people that you never expected to or would have never reached you if you hadn't utilized a tool like this.
Well, Kurt, thank you very, very much. I mean, I think this is great information. Thank you for your insights. We'll see you next Tuesday for the LinkedIn.
Look forward to it.
You'll get.
Thanks, Jeff. Great work that you do. Peace, everybody, and have a blessed day. Enjoy your weekend.
Great. All right. For everybody else, let me just remind everybody, next Friday, we'll do open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about. So join us next Friday morning at 9:30. If you have not put your information into the chat window, please do so we know you're here. We know you're with us. We can update the roster. I will attach that prayer letter document to the email I put out this afternoon along with everybody. So in the Zoom chat window, if you've not put your phone, email, position you're looking for, a couple target companies, please do so, and I'll get that out to everybody so that you can see who else maybe you can help this weekend. Take a look and check all that out. Career DFW, Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Next Tuesday, as I mentioned, Kurt Vandermotter will be back with us again to talk about LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. He will show us the full-blown recruiting package that he uses to find a candidate. So you'll see what he's looking at, what he talked about today. We'll actually be able to see it in person. Next Wednesday, interviewing Wednesday, You can watch an actual practice interview from the pit crew. If you'd like to schedule your own personal interview, just go to dallaspitcrew.com. It will be on Zoom only. It's totally free, and I think it's really a great way to, when you watch other people being interviewed, you'll go, ooh, that was really good the way they did that, or no, I better make sure I don't do that. It's very beneficial. So please join us next Wednesday. And then next Thursday, being the first Thursday of the month, hard to believe it's September already, we'll talk all about effective resumes, how your resume can get through the ATS system, and just a good basic layout for resumes. This session has been recorded. You will be able to go back and watch it on the Career DFW Facebook page or the Career USA YouTube channel. If you on the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist and then look for the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group speakers. And don't click on the video, but down below where you see that red arrow, you can click on View Full Playlist. We talked about the background check video, and if you scroll down the list here, let's see here, is it even on this? It's not. Oh yeah, there it is. It's it just happens to be the very top one there. 2/12/21. It actually did it in 22, also in February. So there'll be a newer version of it higher up on the list. But just scroll down, you can find any title you want, and you can go back and watch those videos. So thank you for joining us today, everybody. Have a great weekend. It's here in Dallas. I know it's very nice for the temperatures not to be 100 degrees for a whole week, and there's no forecast for 100 degrees next week. But hopefully we will see you all next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, can you put in for the new people how they